this is, you got to behave now. You guys got it. Nope, it's going that way.
Oh my gosh, that's like a dead person.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, March 10th, 2020 Park and Rec Commission meeting. I'm going to defer to the director for a minute.
Yes, thank you. Those watching this evening, members of the commission, those in our audience, I'd like to just take a quick second and point out that Matthew Doskich is here this evening, newly appointed member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. This is his first meeting for the Parks Commission. I believe he has prior history with commission work, and he is filling out a partial term for the rest of this year. Filling out for Brenda. New term? Okay, yeah, new term starting in March. Yeah, I'm used to the January 1 thing. Don't hold that against me. I gotta forget that legacy stuff. So with that, I'll ask you to introduce yourself quickly.
Thanks, Perry. As a 11-year resident of Edina, excited to be here and part of this group, and really looking forward to the opportunity to serve on the Park and Rec Commission, and add some value, hopefully, to this group of people. That's all I have. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Matt. Roll call. Janet, please.
Commissioner Osborne?
Here.
Commissioner Joe Scotch?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner McCauley?
Here.
Commissioner Itis?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Item 3 on our agenda, I'll ask for a motion for the approval of the meeting agenda for this evening.
So move.
Any changes or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item 4, I ask for the motion to approve last month's meetings.
The only thing that I saw is in section 6B. There was a motion made by McCauley to recommend the city council be blah, blah, blah. Motion seconded by McCauley.
And we would offer as staff, the corrected would be motion made by McCauley, seconded by Nelson.
Okay.
So those would be the corrections we would entertain for that.
Okay.
We focused a little bit on the review of the next item on your agenda that evening, making sure we had that correct. We got the easy one
There's a
wrong.
lot of names.
Any others? Hearing none, I'll entertain the motion.
So moved.
Second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Community comment. I think we have one this evening.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Joni Bennett. My address is 4003 Lynn Avenue. I'm here this evening on behalf of the City of Edina Complete Count Committee, a group of volunteers appointed by the city manager to help our community learn more about and participate fully in the 2020 U.S. Census. Here is what has not changed about the census. Every 10 years, we count every person living in the United States. This is set in the United States Constitution, and it's been done since the founding of our republic. The census is important because it determines how many seats each state has in Congress, each state's number of electoral college votes, and representation in the state legislature. States receive federal funding based on population, about $28,000 per person over 10 years, for schools, hospitals, roads, and highways. The private sector uses census data to determine where to build businesses and deliver services. Participating in the census is easy. This year, for the first time, people will be able to respond online, by mail, or by phone. The census is short. It's just 10 questions. Answers to the census are secure. Federal law protects any information that identifies an individual responder for 72 years. The census counts people at their usual residence, where they live and sleep most of the time. Minnesota residents who travel or live elsewhere during the winter months should respond to the census with their Minnesota information. Here is what has changed. For the first time, people will be invited to respond online or by telephone. Beginning as early as next week, people are going to receive a postcard or letter in the mail inviting them to respond. And excuse me for a second. I have a graphic that I hope the camera will show that gives an example of what those postcards and letters will look like. They will have in them a digit or code that people will need to use if they're responding online or by phone. There it is. And so people should not discard this, especially if their intention is to use that online or telephone option. They will need that code in order to do it. So again, with Census Day coming April 1, people may be a little surprised to see this piece of mail in their mailbox. There'll be an additional postcard or letter sent out yet during the month of March. And finally, a third one. People will not see paper forms if they prefer that option until after the 8th of April. So people, again, who prefer to fill out that census form should wait patiently. They will see them after the 8th of April. Census workers will not begin to go out and knock door to door until after the end of April. So people who are eager to fill their answers out, again, online, by phone, or on paper, should do so before the end of April. Those are the important things. People with questions, librarians have been trained. So people can go to their local libraries, ask questions of a librarian. The City Hall is another good place to get information. And finally, Edina has a wonderful web page called Better Together Edina that has a lot of census information on it. I want to leave you with these last two numbers about the importance of the census. Even with all of the information we're trying to get out, the State Demographer's Office estimates that up to 1 million Minnesotans will not respond to the census on their own. They will wait for the enumerators to come out. So we risk that undercount by that much. 10 years ago, Minnesota kept the 435th and last seat in Congress by a little over 8,000 people. Please take the census yourselves and encourage your neighbors and friends to participate as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. Any other people in the audience for a community comment? Hearing none, we'll proceed to reports and recommendations. First up is Courtney Fields.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. This evening, we're giving you a brief report on a study that staff has recently kind of commissioned and is moving along for future progress to study the Courtney Fields and what improvements we would highlight there heading into next season's, this upcoming capital improvement plan. As you know, Courtney Fields are located within the greater Braemar Park, kind of on that northwest portion, servicing primarily baseball use, and within that, the Edina Baseball Association is a primary user. There are some of the 4 top fields that we have in the system, and quite frankly, kind of in that metro area. If you recall, as I indicated, this area was studied kind of briefly during the Braemar Park Master Plan. This is a little bit more of an in-depth study that we wanted to complete. As I came on with the city and doing tours, this is one of the areas that I wanted to get a little bit better handle on of what our existing infrastructure is and where we need to plan that heading in. So with that, we asked the consultant to kind of take a look at those issues. We wanted to focus on putting a plan together that we could present during the capital improvement program that would kind of focus on that infrastructure, mainly around conflict avoidance. And that's not person to person, but foul ball to person of conflict avoidance. The other piece was Field 1, which as you look at the screen that's before you, kind of, if it was a clock, it would be that 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock is Field 1. That field did recently receive updated play lighting for athletics. That was also in partnership with the Edina Baseball Association and a Hennepin County Youth Grant. However, fields 2 through 4 do have some dated lighting. The other piece of this is also some site amenities, looking at the batting cages did receive some damage last year. If you remember, that late season snowstorm impacted the poles and netting that was out there, as well as kind of that spectator experience. Seating is a little bit limited around that for the types of games. And then always kind of looking at that underlying infrastructure that people play on and that we maintain, looking at drainage and irrigation. So with that, on your screen you kind of see, for the legend, the highlighted kind of reddish orangish color is kind of those basic pedestrian areas that enter from the parking lot in the southwest and then circulate amongst the fields. The area in green were those batting cages that I indicated. And the area kind of in that dashed yellow is where we kind of have a more of a detailed area around the building facility there and some of the more congregated areas. When we looked at potential conflict, we kind of looked at overlaying areas of what's the least amount of potential conflict to where we may have the most. Using this, we kind of did line of sight data. So it's really about where is home plate located, where do foul balls go. As if you've experienced that, you know that balls that come up from home plate and maybe come straight back are coming at a higher angle, maybe a little bit of a softer velocity compared to those that maybe go down the foul ball line at a sharp angle off of a foul ball bat. So kind of looking at where some of those conflict areas are in relation to where pedestrians are. If you're watching that field, you're maybe more aware of where a foul ball is coming. If you're on the opposite field, you're probably not paying attention to a different field. So looking at that, kind of how do we look to plan and solve these kinds of issues in the future? And that's going with maybe a different style and a different type of netting as our option. So you can kind of see the highlighted purple color is an overhead netting that would go straight up about 40 feet. And the blue would be 20-foot high netting. What currently is there is kind of a canopy system that is a challenge to maintain and support because of the tension that kind of goes all the way around from that aspect. Also, going with vertical netting also still maintains the field of play for the different fields. One option to solve this is if you've ever been to a park where the backstop is cambered over home plate, that takes a lot of the playability out of it, but it also takes a little bit of the advancement of play on the site as well. So while it increases, you have that trade-off always of playability versus spectator safety, trying to find that medium balance within that. So this would include 40-foot high netting around kind of that base of the backstop and then 20 foot down the lines. There could be an option, as the master plan calls for a future playground on this site, to extend netting out on field 4, kind of in that left field area. The other piece of this is we also did look at lighting. As you probably know, lighting that had been put in a long time ago compared to the lighting that goes in today, you're needing much less number of fixtures, less poles. You also have less spill and less glare with newer systems. We've really experienced that on field 1. That's been a very nice improvement. So planning ahead to look at fields 2 through 4, we would reduce the number of poles and the number of fixtures. And as we have a graphic later in here, I'll just skip ahead. It's probably tough to see for the audience, but in your report, you can kind of see these little numbers along Eichel Way on the frontage road. What those all indicate is the level of spill at the property line, and they're all heading towards a very low decimal point of what that is. So kind of knowing you're reducing the amount of spill and glare with a new lighting system as it hits the property line. Field 1 I'm sure had a study like that done when it was installed to have a 0 at the property line to those existing homes. But as you look at that in a little bit greater detail or in your report, it does shed down to very minimal levels at the frontage road for spill and glare. Backing up, we also looked at upgraded bleachers and shade canopies, very consistent with the Braemar master plan, as well as improved drainage and irrigation for playability on 2 and 3. Those are kind of the fields that we have some outdated irrigation systems that puts a lot of water where we don't need it and not enough water where we do need it sometimes. So kind of balancing out those improvements. We did recently meet with Edina Baseball Association and kind of gave them the same presentation with this. Obviously, they're very receptive to doing improvements. The other piece of it is they do want to get a little bit more information about the success rate of those vertical nets behind home plate versus a canopy structure, which we will do as well as we head into CIP planning. Also, we did talk a lot about the batting cages, some other just minor field type improvements that they have requested, such as moving the warm-up pitching mounds from inside the field of play to outside the field of play. So a little bit of things in that nature about what they see from a user of the standpoint, as well as us as a provider of the park as well. So we did kind of talk in detail about the batting cages, what level of service they would like to see on that as well. That will help us as we head into finalizing dollars and numbers for estimates to project into this. So this isn't a decision point at all for you this evening, but as we started the study, we wanted to bring you in kind of on the front end to say, here's where we see one need in the system amongst many, but we wanted to grab some detail for this as we progress into putting an eventual capital improvement plan together. So that's kind of it for the presentation this evening. We're not asking for any formal action this evening. It's informational, bringing you in from the beginning. But if you did have any questions or any comments, we would then use that as we develop a plan further.
Can I ask 2 questions, actually? Excuse me. One thing I did notice it said attached was the cost estimate, but I didn't see it in here or in your walkthrough. So is that just a
Yeah, I took that out.
sneak peek? Okay. I was like, I saw it in here, but I
Basically
just wanted
because
to...
we're not there yet.
Okay.
I think, we haven't value and engineered it. Those were very rough numbers that were inflated for
Okay.
on a conservative ratio, and I didn't want to alarm anyone.
I just want to make sure I saw
This
it
isn't
listed.
cheap.
I saw it listed, but I didn't see it in here, so I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. And then I just I'm sure you're looking at it already, but I know that as we're looking for funds, it might be something to also reach out to the football association. I know they also use, I think it's 3 that they use in the fall also down the hill. I think it's been a while since I had a football player, but I know that they use 4 and 3. Okay.
1 and 3.
1 and 3. Okay. I know they use some of them for those fields, so I don't know if that's another place that we could tap into for getting additional funds. I mean, if there was better lighting, they may be able to use it more. I know they use it on Saturdays a lot, and I know that the irrigation is something that bothers their field of play as well. So I don't know. I'm sure you are, but I just want to. You didn't see that in the notes, so I just want to call that out too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mike?
One, is this, Perry, considered part of the Braemar master plan or separate from the Braemar master plan?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are certain components of this that were identified in that plan, and there are certain ones that are not. So the safety netting was not identified in the original plan, and only the lighting for Field 1 was. And obviously that's been completed now. Fields 2, 3, and 4 were not mentioned in that master plan. So that's why I kind of want to do a little bit of a deeper dive to see what we had going in there. The drainage and irrigation issues were identified. The additional seating with some sun protection was identified, as well as future playground and ADA access. That was all very consistent with the original master plan, but kind of wanted to make sure we looked at it from 2 ways.
Okay. And then, just out of curiosity, I'm looking at this. So this is where the lights are?
That's where future light poles would be, and we had asked for but didn't get a graphic of where the existing ones are. But I think
Okay.
we're reducing by about 60 60% the number of poles.
But
If we would go
Field
to a
one
new
is-
plan.
Field 1 is already complete,
Field
correct,
1 is
or
already completed.
upgraded. So, I don't know, maybe Patrick knows because he's more associated with that. There's more lights than that for Field 1, isn't there?
Field 1s were not included on those dots.
Okay,
So that's just for 2, 3, and 4.
okay. And then the only other question I had, is that netting come down in the winter, or is that left up all winter?
It's a good question. We would leave it up, but pull it to the poles. So we would look for a hanger system and try to slide it horizontally, but leave it up for that and zip tie it up as we go. And that's why it was tough with the batting cages, because it was start of season already when the snow came.
It's great here.
The only question I have on the lighting, are we working with the Energy and Environment Commission at all on sustainability with the new lighting that would go in, and figuring out how long the payback would be from the savings and all that?
Yeah, we have not yet, but we would be once we develop the plan further, is looking at what is that offset? Does that allow us any additional grant or alternate funding sources that might arise because we're saving energy and lighting?
Perry, I had one question. Whatever the estimated cost is, was that included in the local sales tax number that was given to the legislature?
Portions of it were,
Okay.
yes. Yeah,
Okay.
the lightings for 2, 3, and 4 would have not been included.
Okay.
But I think we also have to look at the offset, because
Right.
Field 1 would have, but that's been
Right,
completed,
right.
so.
No, I just wanted
We'd be
to see
pretty
if we were
close.
covered, yeah.
We'd be
covered
pretty
with that.
close.
Sure. Any other questions?
I just have one question, just from an equity standpoint, and using that term in a different way than normal. What does the lighting situation look like at where the softball fields are at Van Valkenburg? Do they have updated lights, or are they in the equivalence of, like, are we giving them the time and effort to?
These are one of the older ones we have in the system for baseball, softball fields. So Van
Okay.
Valkenburg is newer than
Newer, okay.
this, but definitely not as new as Field 1.
Great, thank you.
They still have some life in them yet.
Any other questions for Perry? Thank you.
So with that, we'll continue to kind of communicate with EBA, with the Park Commission, and obviously, this is a big year for us to put a capital plan together, whenever those projects may land or how they may land. But we kind of want to be prepared with a variety of different projects as that gets pulled together. So, thank you.
You're on for Part B.
Is it me again?
Yeah, it's your lucky
I
night.
just keep talking?
It's your lucky.
As the commission knows, we've kind of created a document for you all to fill in. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but to go in and update your 2019 work plan initiatives. Some of those have deliverables that the next step would be to bring them to City Council. Some of them are just study and report. If you'd like, I can send that link out again to everyone to kind of get that completed. Or if you have updates you'd like me to just add as staff, I'd be willing to do that as well. So I don't know if we have any commissioners that want to talk about any progress they've made on that or any challenges with the document, but the sooner we can kind of wrap up 2019, we'll continue to focus on item C, which is 2020. You still didn't get it?
Any questions for Perry at this time, or? Okay, good. Yeah, we just need to get these done, I suppose, so.
I'll just keep going, Chair, then. Also included in your packet is the 2020 work plan. Obviously, this is a time when we go around for any commissioners that have any updates to provide on the number of initiatives. Also this evening, with the appointment of Matthew, we should look to see how commissioners want to add in a new member to those work groups as we go through for any of those initiatives. I know I did attend a meeting for Initiative 4, but I don't know if there's been any other progress that commissioners would like to provide an update on.
Anybody wish to add members to their initiative? Any personal interest, man?
So I did look at this before I came, knowing this was coming. So 3, 4, and 5 were at the top of my list of initiatives, just fitting my skill set and kind of some of the things I'd like to do. So, but I'm more than willing to help in any way the commission sees fit.
Yeah. I'd personally like to have him on 4. I think I'm speaking for Corin. I think that'd be a good way of Matt learning, about the tremendous amount of projects that we have on board.
I agree. I was just asking, what's the max we can have?
You can't have a quorum.
We cannot have a quorum on
Yeah.
Initiative 4. Yep.
And that would be, I know that the students are not a voting member, so it's five too
5
many.
regular commissioners
So
would
we-
be too many.
Yeah.
So one of us, we have to break up with one person to add him to the list, is that right?
Do we have 5 already?
Yeah.
We have 4
We
currently.
have 4 currently. So
We could
Julie,
not have
Eileen, Rick, and myself. Sorry, I'm the lead, I can't be broken up with.
The same would be Initiative 5, if we were going to add that. So initiatives 1, 2, 3.
We have 4 regular commissioners.
Yeah, so 4 is the max, so adding him would be 5.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be willing to step back if you want to put them on that.
So really, initiatives 4 and 5, we could not add any regular commissioners to, unless someone stepped down. But 1, 2, 3, 6, and 7, we could add a commissioner without any current roster changes to your work groups.
I could add to 3, go with 4, go with 3.
Okay.
Put Matt on 4. Unless you
That'd be good. That'd be good to go on 3. Yeah, if Eileen would go on 3, that'd be helpful, I think. Wouldn't you?
And I,
3 could end up to be work, in terms of time commitment.
For planning.
Yeah.
I realized I was the lead on that one. Probably, I don't know, I was lead on both of those, but that's fine. So I'm gonna move Eileen from 4, which I was leading, and to 3,
Good.
correct?
Good.
And add Matthew to 4.
Right.
Yeah.
And add Matthew to 4.
That'd be great.
And
That
then
works.
with regard to any of the other initiatives, I'm more than happy to help out on the ones that have room still. So 1, 2, 6, or 7. So if somebody has a need, I don't have any particular preference.
I'll take your vote number 1.
That sounds great.
Just make sure you're in charge of this.
Did you want to summarize what we talked about since Karen wasn't there, or Corin wasn't, sorry? Corin, yeah. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely. I'll just give a brief update of Initiative 4 that I know a meeting did hand, and that is a review and recommend charge from the City Council. And your task there is to develop criteria that incorporate sustainability and equity for prioritizing capital improvements for park infrastructure needs, including playground equipment, warming houses, and core amenities for expansion and replacement. Parks and Recreation will create the criteria, and both the Energy and Environment Commission and Human Rights and Relations Commission will appoint up to 2 members for feedback on the final criteria before it goes to council. So we did host a meeting. We did look at a number of other examples from other communities, talked about our own internal process. We reviewed Minneapolis, Austin, Texas, Seattle, Washington, Rochester, Minnesota, and a couple of others about how they are, and Minnetonka, Minnesota snuck in there somehow. So looked at kind of what their current process is, how they prioritize capital. We had brief discussion about should it be more of a priority or should it be a scoring or ranking system. Commissioners felt that we should head down the path of just a priority and not get into scoring projects at this point in time. I don't have my notes in front of me, but we identified a number of different criteria from VIIA. That'd be perfect. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So thank you guys for having the meeting, even though I was sick. But here is a list in terms of that they felt the topics were should be considered for prioritization and need to be further defined. So safety, ADA compliance, protecting assets, 4, user experience and community interest, 5, existing assets versus new assets, 6, non-revenue facilities, amenities versus revenue facilities and amenities, 7, park by park approach versus the amenities by amenity by amenity approach. 8, neighborhoods once versus park system once. 9, enhancing the underutilized space for future growth. 10 is leveraging partnership funds. 11 is cost and expense levels. 12 is race and equity goals. And 13 is sustainability improvements and saving offsets.
So none of those have been ranked as of yet.
Yes,
And
just
so
in terms
that'll
of
be-
the order.
Yeah, so that was kind of just a list of topics of prioritizing. So the next steps, as we discussed, would be to further define what each of those means, and then what priority would they fall into as we prioritize. So when we look at available funds, how do we move projects forward?
And correct me if I'm understanding this wrong, but I think the goal is to have some form of a system or spreadsheet so when a project comes in and we can say, here it can go through the gonculator and how we, in terms of, okay, based on all these different criteria, now we have a number and now we can put them all against each other, correct?
Slightly.
Minus the gonculator?
Minus the gonculator. We don't have a gonculator at the city. We would want to do just a priority listing of how those topics flow through each. So each project would have to kind of answer, are we touching each of these points? What we would not do is score them. So kind of a hybrid approach of what you described for our first draft. I'm sure this will evolve over time. So are there any other updates, Chair, or we can?
Any member comments? Corin?
Yeah, I was just going to, I don't want to open the can of worms because I'm one of the few people I think that's not worried about everything else going on, but I just wonder if we should be proactive in making sure that we have hand sanitizer and these kind of things at these different parks because people are very concerned, and I think that as we are running out of things at every retail store, I think it's probably, as we approach spring, which is feeling like it's coming sooner than later, there's going to be more germs touching the parks. I just think it's important that we get ahead of it. So I don't want to open that can of worms, but I also want to make sure we're being prepared.
Just a quick response. We are planning a response for the coronavirus, COVID-19. Again, just as we're gathering information from obviously the CDC, Department of Health, and our own internal environmental health. So we are currently planning that, and again, as you kind of mentioned, it is all about right now that guidance of wash your hands, cover your cough, and stay home when you're sick. I think while those are kind of 3 very simple messages, those are kind of the core ones for right now, and we'll be deploying some additional strategies as we head into our busy season. It is quite odd. We are, as I mentioned this evening to Vice Chair McCauley, we are kind of in the opposite of what people are saying right now. We're in the business of bringing people together in events and large areas. So this will be a challenging year for us, and we hope everything works out well.
And the last thing I didn't see in any of the notes is the date that the dome is coming down. I know it seems really early, but people are already asking when that's happening. So I just was curious if I could get a rough number.
I do not know that off the top of my head. Chad did tell me, and I've forgotten. I know they are making plans for it, It can only be up for a maximum of 180 days, so I'm not going to do the math in my head, but I believe it'll be sometime in April. Yeah. I'll get the commission a specific date. Yeah.
Soccer teams are playing there until the 26th or so of April.
You could be right. I'll get the correct date and let the commission know. We'll get that information out to users.
I had just one question. Last month I mentioned something about the dogs at Arden Park. Any signage done yet? Or?
We do have some temporary signs that we deploy in areas to remind people of rules and regulations, and I'll confirm with Mr. Swenson if those have been put out yet or not.
Okay, thanks.
Just as information, they do work. We put them up at Highlands Park in the by the wooded area, and it cut everything down by at least 95%, and it was bad.
Well, that's great.
So they do work.
Yeah, we're currently deploying, I think, a few of those on the 9 Mile Creek Regional Trail as well. So just a friendly reminder, not a permanent sign, but able to saturate where we have issues.
Saturday, Eileen and I happened to attend the ICOLA dedication for the statue. Having lived here for 44 years, I got to be the benefit of many titles that he bestowed on our community, but it was a great outpouring. I think Perry was there certainly, and just a whole bunch of old hockey players, and it was a great, and he spoke for an extended period of time, but it was good. One other thing, can you tell us a little bit about the presentation of the local sales tax to the legislature?
If there are any other comments, I'll move into
sure.
my informational items that
Okay.
I can give an update on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. We'll start there. I've got it in your informational items as infrastructure funding. As the commission might know, but others may not, the City Council did pass a resolution of support to the state legislature requesting the authorization to have a referendum for a local option sales tax. So quite a number of steps there. But I did want to let you know that on February 20th, Representative Heather Edelson is sponsoring House File 3594, which supports the City of Edina's request for that authorization. City Councilmember Ron Anderson, City Manager Scott Neal, myself, and Recreation Programmer Tiffany Bushland were in attendance for that hearing. A number of questions, a number of comments. However, it did kind of pass that initial step of going through the local property tax and local tax committee on the House side and was laid over for possible inclusion in a future bill. There is not yet a date scheduled for a hearing in the Senate. And again, typically this is a bonding year for the state legislature, so we are not certain yet or not whether there will even be a tax bill or not. So a lot of procedural steps at the state legislature remain to be seen. However, the first hearing went well, so it's a positive sign. With that, I'll just kind of go through our list in there in the packet for you this evening. We opened up summer and spring registration on February 19th. Just a compliment to our staff and to our registrants. We had not a lot of issues that went through, mainly about just making sure people had their Max facility or Max Galaxy registration up to date with their birth dates, informations, things like that. It went well. It was very busy. Janet could probably nod her head. We had around 2,400 registrations the first 2 hours, and those are all online. So went very well. Kind of really a compliment to our users to kind of navigate that system. Moving to a noon registration seemed to work a lot better for people. We did hear some feedback on that. It was nice to have a couple of hours in the morning to get your password reset, be able to get to your office or whatever you might be doing in the morning before you had to kind of try to jump online and register for classes. So, so we're off to a good start for programming for the year. Also, we had in there about the ICOLA statue dedication that did occur, and just a note on the arena. Entering out kind of that busy hockey season, 63,000 people went through the arena in February, 5,700 on Super Saturday. So a lot of attendance going through that. We've got a number of special events in your packet, anywhere from March to May. At Edinburgh Park, we've got some things coming up at the clubhouse, and a number of events for movies that will take place March through May at Edinburgh as well. So please check us out if you're interested in additional family activities that you might not have registered for. We also closed the outdoor ice rinks on March 1st. We did extend 6 of the 12 locations for an additional week. Roughly 31,000 skaters based on our attendance stats, so quite a bit more than the 2018-2019 season. Tiffany Bushland will be here in April to give you kind of a more detailed report on that as well. So, and again, as always, since we have youth in the audience, we are hiring for summer positions. I did this last month as well. Not sure of ages, but if you text jobs to 57838, that's jobs to 57838, you'll be connected to employment information that the city offers. So thank you.
Did any of your kids have phones? No.
Or if you know anyone that's looking for a job. Doesn't have to be you, but. And then last piece of information in your packet, as I did include kind of at the end, just a quick rundown of your upcoming 2020 meetings and events that are. So I know we send a lot of information via email, and I'm sure you're all keeping calendars differently, but at least you'll know once a month we'll put in kind of a revised meeting list of rundown of where we are hosting meetings, what other events that are occurring, and any special meetings that should be on your radar. So.
Just one clarification on the jobs. How old do you have to be and by when?
By employment, usually 16 or over, but it also depends on an area of work. So I believe each facility has different age needs for, park maintenance. I think we do 17 and above. Okay. Edinburgh, some Edina Aquatic Center positions are 16, some are 18. So it really varies, but that information would be on our website for the position itself once you look at it.
Great, thank you.
You were asking minimums, right?
Is that it, Perry?
That's all.
Yeah. Any other items for discussion tonight? Good. I'd like to welcome Matt again to the Park Board and look forward to working with him the next couple of years. Hearing nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All those in favor? Aye. Very good. Thank you, everybody.